It's all about give you a chemical or something, and then they have a frequency that resonates. I mean, it's a perfect system, and this is what we're under. I mean, I read about the feds paying at police departments everywhere to put in super fast flashing fluorescent lights that data transmit with the new computers, and then I go look up the patent, and it's based in a system for putting you into a trance. I mean, if people think we're zombies now, we ain't seen nothing yet. They're just trying to get away with it, engaging it, and we're all in a giant laboratory. I'm ranting here, but correct me if I'm wrong.
You're exactly right. In fact, you can use any oscillator. We did a book you guys carry at Controlling the Human Mind, and it was this discussion of, again, oscillating, pulsing electromagnetic fields. With or without chemicals, it depends on what you want to do, but you can manipulate the brain to a very high resolution. And this is what's changed over time is the resolution. Think about it as what we're doing right now on a Skype. You couldn't do that a few years ago. But as we've refined and got tighter and tighter on our technology bandwidth, we're able to utilize them much more efficiently.
Microprocessors are 1,000 times smaller than 25 years ago. That's the technology we know about.
Right, and it's much better than that. But think about the brain as the ultimate technology, the human brain, in terms of being able to interact with it. But at the same time, the human potential, which is being interfered with, because part of the big research in all of this over the last 50, 60 years, the biggest revelation was how powerful the human mind is, not just all the human minds together, but every single individual human mind is more powerful than the biggest computers in the world. If we ever really stepped into our full potentials as created human beings, it would be much different scenario. In fact, the easiest way to keep that from happening is to keep the population in kind of a constant state of worry, anxiety, and fear. And what happens is the brain itself can't reach these certain states of consciousness where your best intellectual work is done, your most creative work is done.
Well, that's my greatest frustration is that when I'm out sitting under a tree by a natural creek or something with my children, the whole universe opens up, the poetry, the understanding, and then I get on air with the frantic directing things and working, and I lose like 90% of my mind. But everybody knows that happens. And also people misinterpret, Doctor, and I want your take on this. They think, some of them, that I'm up here trying to scare people. It's the opposite. I believe when people know how serious it is, we'll take action. It's the opposite of fear. I am literally not even worried about them killing me or putting me in a dungeon because I want humanity to go to the next level. I understand that it is societal, cultural, species, death of consciousness if this enemy wins. And the power is there. It's so frustrating.
It's right in front of us. Every individual, the American Revolution, I think the statistics I read, it started with a 6% popular idea, and you translate it into election season. Half the people that can register actually don't. Half the people that are registered don't vote, and half the people that do vote make the decisions. That's only 12.5% of the population potentially of potential voters. It's stirring it up where just a few don't make it makes a huge difference. And vice versa, stirring it up so everybody does show up makes it too. And I think that's really important in at least local elections. And national elections, I think it's kind of on the presidential scale anyway. It's, which piece of bad news do you want? But laying that aside, when you look at the manipulation of populations in the political season, think about the television ads and all of the media ads that come at you. They do a couple things. One is what you alluded to before, the flicker rate. If you actually modulate a television set during a commercial at a specific rate to put someone in a highly suggestive state, and you're already kind of there. When you think about people coming home stressed out after work if they have a job and then sitting in front of the television while their spouse is hollering at them and trying to get their attention, they don't even hear them because they're in a light trance state. And then all you have to do is dial it up a little finer, which television ad, and if you look at the white wall behind you when you're watching a television show and look at the flicker rate, it will cause you within 20 seconds to hit that trance-like state where then the ad, just the regular ad, becomes much more anchoring for the majority of the population. Not for everyone, but the majority. And the fact is, you don't need very much in close elections to make the difference. And I think that's, again, it's something unregulated. Every school of psychology teaches frequency following response is what we're talking about here. And you can use any modulator. You can use the internet, radio, television. You can modulate a signal in the atmosphere using big systems like HAARP. You can use
yes, sir. And cell phones, towers, and DARPA has even been in the Baltimore Sun admitting this 12 years ago. I saw an article. Right. The patents are all there. You've written books on it. And here's what's incredible. Darren McBreen, on a job many years ago, happened to be out at a monkey farm, and they had the apes all and the monkeys strapped in with flickering, television. I've been into the UT facility, and the guy's like, "Oh, you're not supposed to see this. You didn't see this." And he punched up the monkey farm out at Bastrop with monkeys with wires in their heads and all this stuff. And I was like, whoa. And then I was led into other areas, how to flicker and make women sexually excited. That was a whole laboratory. I mean, the colleges aren't even for the young people. They're off in other buildings. That's all. You're a professor. You know that. I mean, it's a total front now. And I'm telling you, they are spending almost all their time just on flicker rates, testing different things. I mean, it's incredible.
Well, there's a lot of contracts that have been led in the area of the mind. And in fact, there was a couple on electronic telepathy, and I think we talked about them a few years ago to the University of California, where they were looking at the brain in real time and then trying to replicate the signals that they see, as complex as that is, and then send it into another brain to see if the same thought could be generated. This kind of technology is out there. It's been advancing. Light flicker rates for manipulating behavior is well known. There's a couple great patents on this by Monroe. And when you look at the whole history of the study of the mind, it's become the most exciting thing in a lot of places, I mean, in terms of what it offers, because the same technologies that are being used to suppress our potentials are also those technologies that help us understand what our potentials are in the first place.
Exactly. And the transhumanist that came out of the eugenicist, again, I'm not saying all transhumanism would be bad if someone chose to, just for sight or whatever it is. But the eugenicists claim they want to empower humanity at the top. But I've read the books they put out. I know you have. They have these elite conferences where the billionaires show up, closed to the public. Right. But then it leaks. They're at these meetings, as Bill Joy wrote in 2000 in the April issue of Wired, deciding how they're going to just get rid of us, that they're going to transcend and not give us any of this. It is and then they're the worst people. Of course, they want to hoard it all. They're never going to get all this. They're not going to do this to us and then have God allow them to have all that. I mean, you reap what you sow. The universe is bigger than them and their computers and everything. And I think, they need to be honest about this. And we need to have a real debate about the future of the species instead of them dumbing everybody down, because they're not immune from what they're doing. Everything they're doing to us is coming back on them. How does the elite deal with this? Because I know you've run in some pretty high-level circles.
It's interesting because everyone has a deep philosophy that I've ever met in high position. And if you figure out that, you really get their motivation. And a lot of them, quite frankly, are, in my view at least, motivated by the wrong things. And self-interest becomes the governing issue, and a lack of understanding of the broader picture, if you will. It is about game, the other guy losing and someone winning. And what I observe all over the world is the same things are being sold here as have been sold, say, in Russia. The retirement programs in Russia, the risk of their Social Security system. They have privatized Social Security too. But all the things they are doing there in Europe, we're doing here in the U.S. And it is a global plan. I mean, the politics is becoming cross-cultural, where it applies all the way across. We think we're in a private debate. We think we're in a national debate, but we're not. We're in an international debate on all levels, whether we see it or not. And most of us don't travel 50 miles from our home, but those of us that do see the same parallels popping up in banking, in finance, in regulation of the way we live and the freedoms that we have or don't have anymore. The fact is, it is globalists taking it away from us in an incredible way. And again,
they know how to dominate and win the game, but the point is they're destroying their own species in the process, and that's the thing. It's like you've got to be individualistic. They say come into the communal to take away your individualism. No. You're an individual, but you make decisions of how you want to be treated. That's how you treat others, because when everybody has that attitude, civilizations rise. When you have the civilization of pee in the pool because I want to. Well, everybody starts doing it, and then the pool becomes toxic. I mean, it really comes down to that the globalists are almost like idiot savants. They're idiots when it comes to love and the larger universe, but they're savants when it comes to technocratic evil and the will to power.
You can go back to Zbigniew Brzezinski's writings on this, one of the formers of the Trilateral Commission, National Security Advisor to Jimmy Carter. And I quote from him often that, Between Two Ages was a book about technologies and how technology would shape the world geopolitically. It was written in the 70s, early 70s. And if you read it, you swear it's a history because it's exactly that way. In other words, whether he was forecasting or writing the roadmap, and I think, and a lot of others do, he wrote the roadmap.
Now, my dad was at UT in the 60s, and they already had a lot of the technology that came out 20 years later, and they were all telling him everything that was going to happen. I mean,
right.
Listen, we're on a plan. They knew what the web was going to do. DARPA created. They've got the whole. It's all 50-year and 100-year plans, as Brzezinski writes.
Yeah, and the World Wide Web, PBS did a piece on this. They called it the next generation of this, the World Wide Mind, which is the idea of connecting every mind together in some artificial way. That I find pretty objectionable, and I think most people would. But the fact that people are taking that science to that direction without regulation, without consideration of what human beings are fundamentally, I think is a huge error. The other part of this is, if very few reach their full potential as humans, everything changes. The existing order changes. When it becomes truly transparent, it falls apart, because when you really look into what governments have done and the level of corruption, not just over, in some third world backwater, but right here, we've done it with regulation and the niceties of law, but the result is the same. Power just dictates what happens in this country. If you have money, you determine access to legislators, influence on those legislators, and outcomes from those legislators. Because if you walk into your U.S. Senator's office and you ask for 30 minutes of time, likelihood of getting it are about zero. But if you write a check for $5,000 for their campaign committee and walk in and ask for that half hour, I guarantee you, they're going to figure out the time. But the problem is that moneyed interests, special interests decide everything anymore. Unless the politician specifically stays grounded with the people that elected him, it always drifts this way. My brother, Mark, at one time in his political career early on, he said, don't trust any of them and you won't be disappointed. And that's a family been involved in this for 50 years. And I can tell you, hold everyone's feet to the fire, no matter who they are, because the very system they enter begins to corrupt from the first day. The best advice I can give to anyone in public office who's new to the game is stay true to yourself, stay in touch with your constituents, reach out to the people that elected you, because otherwise you lose your heart and your soul to a game that is just cold-hearted.
Well, sure, and powerful men always get us into huge wars that a lot of times even destroy them, because it's about one-upping, and the very dominant instinct that got them where they are, they don't know when to pull back. They don't know when to stop. And I'm speaking directly to the evil ones out there. I can historically know where this is going, and the technocrats aren't going to make it out of this either. And they've made a lot of mistakes too, but because they're in charge, they're able to just keep going and doubling down. And I just say, pull back, stop, don't do it, no. Because it's going to end all this. It's going to end your grandkids. It's going to end their kids. It's going to be the death of us if we don't turn this around. Dr. Nick Begich is our guest. I'm Alex Jones.